Hey everybody, my name is Shalise Ansola. Welcome to Cults to Consciousness Live. We are doing kind of a crossover of videos here. We're doing someone's story and we're going live, so it's kind of like a mishmash. So, Dr. Laura Anderson, thanks for being here.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be with you this morning or afternoon, wherever you're at.
Wherever you're tuning in from. So, I wanted to bring
Mhm,
on Dr. Laura because she's a licensed psychotherapist and trauma coach and consultant who specializes in post religious trauma, right?
Yes. Yes. I would say the majority of my clients are post high control religion, cults, fundamentalism, really fun stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, the fun stuff, right? We all know
Yeah.
people who have left cults were like, "Oh, yeah, the fun stuff." Um,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
I love your story, and we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty
Mhm,
of it, but basically, we're gonna be talking
mhm,
about how you grew up with an evangelical background.
mhm,
You recognized that something was not okay. You didn't know until
mhm.
later that there was a name for that, cPTSD, and then you realized that there was this
Mhm.
huge hole in the market of therapists who don't quite understand religious trauma because it's its own beast.
Sure is. Yeah, yeah, it very much is. And unfortunately, up until the last 5 or 6 years, religion culturally has been looked as such a positive and pro-social thing. So, when we talk about spiritual abuse, it's limited to like these very overt acts, like clergy sexual abuse and things like that. And
Mhm.
there most people haven't had that happen, but they have had a whole host of other things happen, including just really high controlled doctrine and practices, and that just grates away at their character and who they are. So, yeah, what myself and my colleagues are doing is new in the sense of like really bringing it to the forefront and saying, hey, religious trauma is trauma, and we need to be able to treat it as such and help people, support people with all of the knowledge and research and tools that we have.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So I I
Yeah.
told you off camera that I did get into therapy because obviously the work that I
Hmm.
do is very heavy and it can be very triggering at
Yes.
times.
Hmm.
And what had happened was I ended up spending my entire therapy session just explaining Mormonism and why it was hard. And I was like, that's not why I'm
Yes.
here. This
Mhm.
is just so
Mhm.
much and I'm
Mhm.
just trying to get to the bottom of this. I don't wanna have to explain
Mhm.
why it's hard to be in a high control group. I don't wanna have to explain
Mhm.
why it's
Yep.
traumatizing to have to confess your sins to a man in a room alone at 12
Yeah.
years old. Like, there's just so much to that. And so I was
Mhm.
telling you, I was like, I need to hire you or one of your team members to be my new therapist, someone who gets
Yes.
it.
Yeah, so I founded the Center for Trauma Resolution and Recovery. We're an online trauma coaching company, coaching because that's actually the best medium for the most access for people. But all of our practitioners have backgrounds in mental health, whether they
Mm,
have been a licensed therapist in the past, or perhaps that's just what they went to school for, and maybe they did or didn't use it in a professional capacity. And then they all have advanced trauma training as well as backgrounds in high control religion, cults, things like that.
that's so
So they
good.
do have the lived experience as well as the professional experience, which exactly what you're saying. That's one of the features is of people are like, I don't have to convince you. I don't have to like get you up to date on like, here's what a high control group is. Like I can walk in there day one and what I'm talking about. And yeah, we might have
Mhm.
some weird practices as compared to this group or that group, but the general thing. And I don't have to spend my time convincing you that it was that bad. And because, like
Yes.
you, I have also had those experiences where people are like, yeah, I don't really get that. Is it, it's just a bad church experience. And it's like, ugh, not
Oh,
really. And
that's the
that's actually
worst.
quite shaming and very
Yes.
triggering. So
I
yeah,
was just gonna
yes.
say, you saying that, I was like, "Ugh." Like, it got
Yeah.
me because I've heard that
Yeah.
before where it's just like, "Oh, it was just a
Yeah.
bad bishop." I'm like, "No, the reason it's
Mhm.
a bad bishop is because of the system that he was a part of, and
Yeah.
he wouldn't have been that way if it weren't for the system." It's just like anyways, you get it.
Exactly. Yes, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. Yes. So that we do it for that reason, because we know how like people just need to go like, this is what happened to me. It was that bad, and have somebody go, yeah. It was, and we can start
Mhm.
at that point working on it, rather than convincing or bringing you up to speed and, let me pay you to educate you. So, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so with
Mhm.
all of that said, guys, if you haven't figured
Mhm.
it out already, this is why we decided to bring Dr. Laura on our first C2C vacation because she knows all the things. And we're so excited. At the end of this video, we're going to be telling you all about where we're going, what we're going to be doing.
Mhm.
And I have to preface this because I know it's like we just talked up all of her credentials. This is not meant to be like a healing
Yes.
dive
Yeah.
into your trauma vacation. It's basically we just want to
Mhm.
create a safe space for people to come. If something does come up, if a trigger does happen and you want to talk about
Mhm.
it, we are going to have the structure there to support you.
Mhm.
But mostly, this is just going to be a really fun vacation for all of us to relax, go on adventures together with a side, what I call a side of consciousness, where we're going to be doing a
Yes.
few different workshops to kind of help empower the
Mhm.
guests, come together, come into yourself, regulate, all of those fun things, but you don't have to be a religious trauma survivor or any trauma survivor to come. It's open to
Mhm.
everybody. Again, we just want to create that safe container for people who do want to come. So stick around to the end
Yeah.
to find out where we're going.
Mhm. I'm excited. Yeah.
So,
It's gonna be great.
yeah, it's gonna be so great. Oh, we already have our first super chat. Thank you so much. I look forward to your videos every week.
Aw.
Thank you for all the amazing work that you do. Well, thank you so much for your support. That means a lot. Super chats are greatly appreciated, guys. Not necessary, but they will
Mm.
prioritize as far as putting it up on the screen. We couldn't have Jonathan here today. He already had a job that he was working on, so I am the moderator. So go easy on me. I'm gonna do my best to do all the tech stuff that Jonathan normally does. We miss him. Okay, so yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming. We have people from Sweden, wow, South Africa, all over the place. This is so awesome. Ohio.
Wow.
Thank you guys so much for coming. So let's get into your story then. I know that you
Yeah.
were raised evangelical. You mentioned in your book,
Mhm.
I forgot to mention your book. You wrote a book, When
Oh,
Religion
good.
Hurts You.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you wrote a book. That's amazing. There it is. She's sending me a copy. I
Yes.
feel special. And we
Yes.
are gonna talk about your book at the end of this when it's relevant to the
Mhm.
timeline. But first,
Yeah.
I read on your
Yeah.
website you grew up evangelical, you were a camp kid,
Mhm.
and then you turned youth
Mhm.
director. And so
Yeah.
just lead us into that and tell us what that was like.
Yeah. So, like many people in high control religions, I don't have memories of it, of ever having not been in it. Like growing up, I was born into it. Um, and when I was quite young, probably third, fourth grade, my dad accepted a position at a fundamentalist Christian camp as a director, which meant my entire family moved there to rural Minnesota. So you can imagine it's quite isolated. Most camps don't happen in metropolitan areas. And
Right.
so yeah, we were there. We lived on site for over a decade or for a decade, I think. And on the one hand, there was some really cool things like what kid wouldn't want to be at a camp? I had a horse corral and a climbing wall and a ropes course and a lake and these really amazing things that now as an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had access to those. But
Right.
at the same time, we started to, I can look back now and I realize, wow, there was a lot of isolation. We were at least 30 to 45 minutes away from school, our church that we went to, just kind of any of our friends. We were several hours away from other family. So there was a bit of that isolation feeling. It was kind of an insulated bubble, especially in the summertime. We would it was just camp all the time, all during the summer and
Mhm.
then every single weekend. So there was kind of this really like insular effect. And so it was meant to be that way. It was promoted to be that way. This is we're apart from the world and here's this like really special place you can go to where everybody's believing the same things, going after the same things, and then we can bring that out into the world. But this is the safe place. Out there is the dangerous place. So
Of
we start to
course.
see that indoctrination, which of course then is echoed in the church and the youth group and things like that. Um, but yeah, so there with that, of course, there's a lot of rigid rules, everything around like gender roles and modesty, what you can and cannot wear. There's a lot of
Mhm.
relational control who you can be in relationship with, and really then, I don't know how familiar people are with the concept of purity culture,
Oh,
where
yes.
kind of yes, abstinence only movement. Well, that really started to take off, kind of on a public sphere in like 1993, which was I was in late middle school at that point, I think 8th grade. And so on top of all this fundamentalism, we then had purity culture that was coming in where you're pledging your virginity to your future spouse. I was a late bloomer, and so like I still was like boys have cooties. And because I was and so I'm like, but I'm pledging away my virginity. I'm saying I'll not have sex until I get married. And then I won't even kiss until I get married, when I'm like 13 years old. And I'm not even, I mean, I'm not equipped to make a decision like that, but I'm
Of course.
subscribing, there's that expectation to subscribe to all of these rules and practices and theologies because this is what God says. And even if I don't understand it, my parents and those in authority over me believed it. And I knew that I had to follow them or that would be a sin, honor your father and mother.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's really that kind of took me all the way through high school. I really wanted to be somebody who could get out and see the world. I had this understanding that the world is so much bigger than what I've been introduced to. But because my kind of the pinnacle of my life was supposed to be being a wife and a mother, I was really discouraged to, going to school and having a career because I didn't need those skills if I was going to be supporting my family at home. And that is not to knock anybody who chooses to be a stay at home parent or to not
Of
have,
course.
academic training or anything like that. It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted something different, but it was what I had to choose. It was really the only option. So, because I didn't have, somebody waiting for me to, marry me the moment I graduated from high school, I did end up going to community college, which is where I got involved in our church youth group first as a volunteer. And then I was actually hired on to work at the church. And I started as an assistant to the youth pastor and eventually worked my way into more kind of prominent roles of authority. And that's where I started to experience what I would consider overt spiritual abuse. I would say everything I
Mm.
had experienced until that point was more covert in the
Right.
teachings and the doctrines and the practices, but I can still very like viscerally remember the first experience of overt spiritual abuse. And I know I talk about it in my book, but I was literally being screamed at by a pastor. And
Oh my gosh.
I didn't have words. I didn't have the words or the terminology of spiritual abuse, but I was connected just enough to my body to know this isn't right. Something's not
Yeah.
right here. But I also know because he told me, because this pastor told me if I tried to speak out about it, if I told anybody about it, my job was on the line. And so
Right.
then we had those threats there. We had really like that increased sense of control. And so during I think I worked there for about 5 years on paid staff, and the abuse became more and more overt. The control that they wanted was just more every day. I ended up actually quitting my job at the church because of so much abuse that was happening around a relationship that I wanted to be in. The pastor that I was in a direct working relationship with didn't approve of the person that I wanted to date. And as a
Oh.
result, it was so messy. um he had people like spying on me, kind of surveilling me, reporting
Oh
back to
my
him.
gosh.
Lots of rumors were started, just really, really awful stuff. And of course, again, I don't have language for this. I'm disconnected from my body. And I'm under the assumption that the spiritual authorities around me are the people that know what's best for me. So I'm having this both cognitive dissonance as well as like an embodied dissonance of what my lived experience is telling me one thing, but what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to believe, and what is being told to me is very, very different. And eventually, it just got to be
Mhm.
so much that I ended up quitting my job at the church. And what happened from there is I was still terrified. Originally, I had wanted to when I quit my job, I wanted to move a couple hours away. I wanted to go back to graduate school to become a therapist, and, find a job close to that school. But what happened is, I was accepted to these schools, like kind of contingent on references and, some of the paperwork or whatever. And I started getting calls from jobs and the schools I wanted to go to, saying, "We're so sorry, we can't accept you." And what I found out later, years afterwards, was that the pastors and other people at the church had actually contacted those schools and contacted those opportunities for employment to essentially blacklist me. Um,
What?
yeah, yeah, it was wild, and I couldn't figure it out because 'cause I'd have these amazing interviews, and they'd be like, essentially like, "When
Yeah.
can you start?" And then a couple weeks later, they'd be like, "Yeah, we can't hire you." And it was just this real, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. And so it was really this concerted effort to not allow me to get out of that, to move away from that. And so I ended up taking a job at a community college, doing work in the admissions department. And I did not love the job, but I can look back now, and I think I even knew it then. It was the first job that I had that was outside of any religious system. And
Mhm.
because of that, I there was an immediate difference in the way I was treated. There was an immediate
Mhm.
difference in the way that, my voice mattered. They didn't care what I wore. They didn't care what I did on the weekends. They didn't give
Right.
two shits about who I was in relationships with. I came to work, I did a good job, and I left, and they liked me, and they spoke highly of me, and they respected me, and that was it.
Yeah.
And that was such a different experience for me that I was like, "Okay, I think I need to start looking to really leave the community." But because my degree at the time was in Christian ministry, I was like, "I have very limited opportunities." So I secretly started applying for different grad schools that would be in different locations that didn't require me to have like a pastor's letter of recommendation or things like that, because I
Right.
knew if I could find a job and get a career that didn't have me tied to a religious community, I knew that that would kind of be my way out. So it led me back into grad school. I was still in the community. I was still heavily involved in the church, except I wasn't being paid for it. There was a lot of requirements of what I had to do in terms of giving of my time, energy, and resources. I just wasn't being paid for it. And so by the time I got done with grad school, I was so burnt out. I was already planning on moving to Nashville, which is where I'm currently at. And I kind of had a breaking point one day, and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And really kind of just disconnected from a lot of the relationships that I was in and went silent. And I was just like, you know what? I just need to make it to Nashville, and and I can kind of start my life over, which is what I
Mhm.
did. I still stayed in the church for another couple of years. I ended up at a quote unquote progressive Southern Baptist church, which I don't even know that that entirely exists. But what it did allow me was that I was able to ask questions. They were welcomed there. And so I wasn't my faith wasn't being called into question for simply asking, for more information. That was really wonderful.
Mhm.
I also started dating somebody at the time who initially really welcomed that about me. Long story short, it was a very abusive relationship. And I can see now how like high control religion and purity culture really set me up for that.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, yeah, but at the time I was like, "Oh, this is, like, yeah, this is like the person I've been praying for, purity culture, blah blah blah." Um, long There's a lot more details, but it really was ushering in a more formal process of deconstruction. I had been kind of untangling my faith for several years at that point, but it was when I moved to Nashville that I started to be able to actually make action changes, like actually
Mhm.
do things, because I wasn't in that community. And there was a lot of hard stuff along the way. And I didn't understand right away that I had trauma, that I didn't gosh, I mean, it took me probably 5 or 6 years in therapy before a therapist finally said, "Hey, this is cPTSD." And even though I was a therapist at the time, and I knew all of the criteria for cPTSD, it took having her, tell me that to be like, "Oh my gosh, this actually makes
Right.
so much sense." And so, that was, gosh, that was 5, 6 years ago or so. But having that, understanding what my diagnosis was, understanding that the religion that I had grown up in had really created this pervasive sense of threat and overwhelm and feeling
Mhm.
like that I could not escape it. It was really, really helpful to understand that. And so as I was able to cognitively understand what had happened, it translated into more of an embodied healing practice. I did a lot of body-based trauma resolution work and eventually was like, I need to get trained in these modalities, which is what I did. And that's where I started going a little bit public with it, and got received some really good responses and feedback, and ultimately kind of led me into starting my company and a couple other organizations, and then writing a book. And here we are. That's the last 20 years in a nutshell. you
Oh
know
my goodness, that
yeah.
you just, like, nailed it. Well done. I'm like, "I'm not even gonna stop her. This is so great. I'm just gonna let her keep going." Just got all of the
Mhm.
information. Yeah, there were so many things that you
Yeah.
said that I could relate to. The
Mhm.
whole purity culture, high demand group setting you up for abusive relationships or toxic
Yeah.
relationships, narcissistic
Mhm.
relationships. I've been in all of that, and it creates this
Yeah.
weird kind of, it doesn't feel right, but it also is what in a way, like, you're used to being manipulated, and you're used
Yes.
to someone telling you exactly
Yes.
what to do and how to dress and how to
Mhm.
be, and you kind of just go along with it even though it doesn't feel comfortable, and then when they
It's
give you those,
familiar.
like
Yeah.
yeah, when they give you those breadcrumbs of, "I love you so much, and no one will love
Mhm.
you as much as I love you," you're like, "Oh,"
Mhm.
that's that feeling we get
Yeah.
from church sometimes, or at
Yeah.
least that was my
Yes.
experience where I'm like,
Yes.
I'm special.
Mhm.
I'm the chosen one from God, and I was
Mhm.
lucky enough to be born
Yeah.
into the one true religion on the planet. Just all of that stuff. It just all
Yeah.
aligns with setting you up for
Yeah.
failure in that way.
It does. It does.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a really eye-opening moment. I speak about this a bit more in the book, but I had this eye-opening moment after I had kicked my abusive former partner out of our home. I was flipping through my journals, and I had written out things that he had said to me or things I was questioning, and I could not tell if that was from him or if it was from God. Like, who said what? Right? Because there really
Interesting.
wasn't a difference. When he said, "You are nothing without me," that was not difficult for me to believe. I already believed that. I already believed that I was nothing without this higher power. When he said, "You're
Right.
unworthy," that was not hard for me to believe. I already believed that I was unworthy. I had been taught that since I was a teeny tiny child. And so, yeah, we do see then how one thing can easily lead into another. And it doesn't stop just because you decide, I'm not going to go to this church anymore. Those things are
Mhm.
really embodied in us. And we have to look at it from that perspective in order to actually, be able to heal from what has happened to us.
Yeah, definitely. So then what changed in order for you to recognize, I mean, we know that therapy helped you understand and validated your
Mhm.
experiences, but then you wrote
Mhm.
a whole book, When Religion Hurts You.
Yeah,
So how did you get
yeah.
to that point where you're like, "Okay, I have something to share and I want other people
Mhm.
to be validated as well?"
Yeah, I always say my personal life inspires my professional life.
Mhm.
I had clients that were already coming into my office even before I was kind of known as somebody who works with religious trauma, and they would come in and start talking about their experiences. And I am somebody who it's funny. Actually, one of my clients pointed this out to me a few years back. When I was in religion, I was all about helping people, have the resources that I didn't have. So, I was teaching purity culture curriculum to people, and I was creating all these things or whatever. And I like kind of haphazardly shared some of that on Instagram one day. And one of my clients responded, she goes, I know you don't believe this anymore, but isn't it cool that you've always been somebody who wants to provide resources for other people and who genuinely is passionate about what they're doing and wanting to help others? And I was like, ugh, like, I hate that it was the purity culture stuff, but she was not wrong, you know?
Yeah.
um, and it felt so special that she recognized that, because really what got me to writing this book. So I did go back to school for my PhD. And part of that, you do like a practicum internship type thing, but you have a lot of flexibility in what that is. And I had, at this point, started to become a little bit known kind of publicly on social media for working with religious trauma. But similar to what you said earlier, like, it's all these people who are like, I had to go and explain this to my therapist. I had to go and teach them what it was that happened to me. And I wanted to make a resource for therapists and other mental health providers, coaches, advocates, things like that, so that clients wouldn't have to do that. So I went onto social media, onto Twitter, and I had a very tiny following. um, and so I just kind of posed a question, and I thought I might get a couple answers back. And I just said, hey, what would you want your therapist to know about religious trauma? And it got reposted or retweeted or whatever the lingo is. And then by the next day, I had hundreds of answers to that question, that people were like,
Wow.
this and this and this and this and this, which was incredible. And so I took that to actually write, and I wrote an entire manual for mental health providers on not like a step by step process of what you do, but here's how these things live in the body. Here's some of the lived experiences of people. And here's how you as a therapist can become educated and take these things into consideration. And so that was kind of my first way in. But then I was like, gosh, not everybody has access to a therapist or a coach, whether that is because of location or finances or time, or they just simply don't want to go that route. And so I was kind of mulling around, like, what do we do with that? And I literally was just I was approached by a literary agent one day, and she said, I've been following your work for years, and I just want to know, would you ever write a book? And I was like, well, funny you should ask. I've been wanting to, but I have not figured out how to start. And so we met. I really enjoyed her. It was a really good match. Is a good match. She's still my agent. Um, and she was like, I really think you need to be the person to write this book. And I was like, at first I was very nervous because that's a tall order. And that's a it's it's humbling, to be like, you should be a person to write this. But that's ultimately how the book came about. I used a lot of my doctoral research, from my dissertation and my own experience, and then client experiences, and then, of course, interactions that I've had on social media and other places. And that is what the book became. And yeah, and here we are. It came out exactly a month ago today.
That's amazing. I just dropped the
Yeah.
link. Let me bring myself back on here. I just dropped the link again in the chat. So if
Mm,
you guys want to check that out,
thank you.
go get it. Hot off the press. I love that. That's
Mhm.
so awesome, especially how
Yeah.
everything just kind of came into place and it
Yes.
fell into your lap, but not without a lot of work, obviously. But it's just
Yes.
great that the
Yeah.
people started popping up and everything seemed to come together in a way to provide this
Mhm.
asset that is clearly needed. So that's so
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been pretty cool to look back on that, and then to like hold something and be like, "Oh, this is like the fruition of a lot of years
Yeah.
of pain and hardship, but here we are a little bit on the other side of it." And being able to share that then with others, and talk about the the process of healing and really what that's all about. I love it.
Yeah. That's amazing. MVPs back in the chat. Thank you so much for your super sticker. He was in our last live. All right.
Mm.
So I think is it time to talk about the trip?
I think we could. It could
Is
be
it
fun.
time? Woo! Okay,
Yeah.
so if you have
Mm,
been on the channel for a while, if you're not new to the channel, you know that we've been planning for months our first C2C vacation. We are really excited to announce where we're going, which is happening in like 60 seconds. But we basically wanted to figure out what you guys wanted. So as you know, we've been dropping
mhm,
the survey link. Fill out the survey, fill out the survey, tell us where you want to go, tell us what time of year and all that stuff. So we've gathered all of this information, and I don't know if it's because we may have like nudged where we wanted to go personally, but the top location that you guys picked was Costa Rica. So we are very, very excited to go to Costa Rica.
mm,
We just love that place. Jonathan and I went
mm,
last year, and that's actually that picture that you see with us at a waterfall was in Costa Rica at a waterfall. And it was just so serene and calming. And just, if I may get woo for like half a second, the energy of the land is just like a
mm,
warm hug with all of these different species. And it's just so nice. And even when it
mm.
rained, we had a blast. And because you're in the rainforest. So that's where we're going. We're going to a different part of Costa Rica than we've been before, but it is in the rainforest, and we're going to do all these activities. So let me go through this little page. Actually, I'm going to drop the link that I'm showing right now in the chat. So if you guys want to get more information as I share the screen, you can. So, Costa Rica, let me just show you a few of the pictures because it's so beautiful. There's us. Yay, we're so cute.
Mhm,
They have hanging bridges. That's a staple in Costa Rica. The
mhm.
waterfalls that you can swim at. This is the hotel. I'll be showing you another part of the hotel in a minute. That's also from the hotel because a spa treatment is included. And some hot springs, natural hot springs on the property. And I think that's about it. So those are some visuals for you. So it's going to be 6 days. The dates are August 27th through September 1st. There are 8 to 20 spots, so you can't book yet. We just wanted to kind of build the hype a little bit, let you guys look through the itinerary, see if it will work for your schedules. We are officially going live with the booking on Tuesday of next week. We're going to do a live where you can jump on with us, and it'll be like 3, 2, 1, okay, it's live, and then you can book because there are limited spots. So 6 days. Here's what's included: 5 breakfasts, 2 dinners, transport from the airport to the hotel because it is like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hour drive. The flight is not included because, you know, people are coming from all over the world. They have their airline preferences. They know what they like, what they don't like, what time they want to fly. So the transfers, there's going to be 3 different transfers throughout the day. And as long as you get there in one of those windows, you will be taken to the hotel as part of the vacation, the trip included. And then activities. So I mentioned the spa treatment. There's going to be an exfoliation treatment. You're going to get a massage, and then you're going to go down into the hot springs, the natural hot springs. We're going to do horseback riding to a waterfall where we can swim in the waterfall. I'm so excited for that one. I love horses. And you can live out your culty campy experiences in a more positive way, Laura.
Yes, it's been a long time since I've ridden a horse, probably since those days. Yeah, this
Oh
will be
my
good.
gosh. We're calling this like the anti-cult cult, so we don't want to be
Yes.
culty. We're doing everything we can to not be a cult. We just want to have a good time, guys. And then
Mhm,
there's going to be a volcano hike. So those are all the
mm,
things that are included. It's going to be pretty action-packed. And then throughout the trip, so we have here our 3 different workshops that are going to be led and curated by Dr. Laura and myself. And we are just going to really get into who we are. And like the first one is relax and regulate. So, of course, we got to start with
mhm,
like a little getting to know you. So you get to know people who are on the trip. And oh, this is a good point to point out, a good moment to point out that the rooms are double occupancy. And at first you might be like,
mhm.
oh, I don't want to book a room with somebody else. But let me be the first to say I've done trips like this where you just go and get out of your comfort zone and you room with someone new. And I've created lifelong friends that way. And it's actually pretty amazing.
Mm.
So you can request to have your own room at an additional cost, but of course, it's going to be limited availability. I would just highly recommend just go and see what happens. Just hang out with the people who are there to also have a good time. So we're gonna be doing this like getting to know you thing, and then Dr. Laura is going to lead how you can self-regulate. Again, this is meant to be a very positive experience. We're not gonna dive deep into people's trauma. Things may come up, of course, and that's why Laura's coming, but it's
Mhm.
just meant to be this is how you really integrate within yourself. If big feelings come up, they don't even have to be trauma related. We all have hard lives
Mhm.
every now and then. We can learn how to really come back into ourselves. Do you wanna expand on that, Laura?
Yeah. Yeah, so with the regulation piece, like Shalice has been saying, this is not like a trauma trip where we're digging in and we're, doing 8 hours of group therapy or whatnot. But we do realize
Yeah.
that, you know, stuff can come up, whether it's, being at a beautiful waterfall and that can bring up something, or just in conversation. I'm sure many people will be sharing their stories. And sometimes hearing people's stories can bring up your own stuff or trigger you,
Mhm.
or just kind of hit you in a different way. So, one of the things that I really love to prioritize just off the bat is a sense of what I call internal safety, and really focusing on like, how do we work towards self regulation? So, not if triggers happen, but when triggers happen, we have some internal coping mechanisms that we can tap into, that can help us stay present or get to a place of a little bit greater safety or connection and stability. And I think that can be extremely important, even if we're not on a trip that is like, yeah, we're going to be digging into trauma. Like vacations can do that too. Just
Yeah.
being away from the daily routine and grind of life can sometimes open up space for other things to come up. So this is hopefully a good way to create some resources right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm excited for this because I literally
Mhm.
joined therapy to get that, exactly what you described. And as I
Yeah.
mentioned, I just spent the whole hour talking about why Mormonism is harmful. I'm like,
Oh
damn it,
God.
this is not working.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see what you
Yeah.
come up with for that. And then the next workshop, we're
Yeah.
going to be building upon that and really getting into our bodies. So something that's also very common, even if
Mhm.
you weren't in a religious background, is dissociating from your
Yeah.
body, getting a little spacey. You are projecting yourself into a future moment instead of being present. And
Mhm.
so we can dissociate from ourselves. And it's so valuable
Mhm.
to really be in our bodies and really
Yeah.
take note of what's going on in our bodies and tune
Yeah.
in. And so we're going to be doing
Mhm.
stuff that's a little bit more movement based now that we've talked about the psychology side of things from the
Mhm.
previous day. And as a dancer, I don't know if you guys know this, but I grew up a dancer. Very typical for Utah, but love moving around, dancing around the house.
Yeah.
And so I'll put together some ways where we can just like move and shake. And this is not a dance class. Well, it's not a dance class. I just love dancing, but it's just going to be a way to reconnect with ourselves. We'll do some deep breathing exercises. And then, Laura, you were
Mhm.
wanting to add something to this as well.
Yeah, okay, now I'm trying to think what what we talked about. But with the embodiment piece, here's what I'll say to that is that, especially if you've grown up in cults, high control religion, the divorce of your body is key, right? Your body is bad, evil, sinful, all these things.
Mhm.
I really view that getting back into your body is like an act of rebellion in the best way. And so,
Yeah.
whether that is, like dancing, moving, shaking, things like that, or just coming back into your body and understanding some of the natural cues that our body gives us to use the restroom, to eat when we're hungry, go to sleep when we're tired. I think that's all really important. So, even if like the dance piece doesn't resonate with you, I think we can create some other options, or even just kind of give you some things to consider, that will
Mhm.
help with that embodiment piece. place, especially if we have resources for safety where we can go, okay, my body is a little bit safer. And now here I can get back into my body, whether it's through some more intentional movement or through just paying attention to our natural cues. I think that it kind of like builds on each other, which I
Yeah.
think is really exciting and really rebellious. And who doesn't want to rebel against, all the rules? I do. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I do.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
funny, it's really random that I talked about this on my first date with Jonathan, but this is one of the moments where he was like, "Yeah, there's something going on here." Because I basically just said dance for me growing up was a way to self-express, and it felt like
Yes.
I was being shut down in so many other ways. This was my opportunity to be like, "Okay, look at me now. Okay, I know we're supposed to
Yeah.
be humble and we're supposed to not be vain and all of that, but look at me and look what I can do, and I'm
Mm.
expressing, and it was just such a therapeutic thing for me growing up. It was really my safe zone because otherwise I was very, very quiet. I was very shy. I was like
Mhm.
such a little mouse. I didn't speak very
Yeah.
loudly, but when you turn on a camera, I was like, it's my turn to shine. And so I love that whole getting back into your body and using that as a therapeutic
Yeah.
thing, and also just the something as simple as laying down and going over the inventory of your body, and let's
Mhm.
put all of our
Mhm.
attention here and put all of our attention where's the tension at, and
Mhm.
releasing that. So it doesn't have to be big and wild and crazy, but just bringing in the focus, I think, is awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
around that same note about be humble, I hate it so much. The last one we're gonna do is called It's All About Me, because even again, outside of religious groups, there's still this stigma that you can't just say, "I'm the shit. I'm awesome," you know? We don't wanna be
Mm.
cocky and over the top, but in this workshop, we kinda do because we want to just go above and beyond, say all the things we wanna say,
Mhm.
and take inventory of ourselves, journal some things down about what it is that makes you great instead of just focusing on the future, because
Mhm.
all of us have
Mhm.
goals and I want to do this and I'm not going to be happy until I have that, or just wait
Yeah.
until I have the house that I want. And all of that's great, but
Mhm.
sometimes it takes away the focus of everything you have now, of
Mhm.
how much you've already accomplished, and just like pat yourself on the back for being awesome. And so I
Yeah.
think it'll be really fun to come up with these exercises with you, Laura,
Mhm.
to talk through these
Mhm.
prompts and really
Yeah.
get people to find out how awesome they are and then share it with everybody
Mhm.
unapologetically. I think it's gonna be so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. I always love telling people like the goal of doing all of this healing work really is living right now, living in the present, being able to enjoy
Yes.
how far you've come, who you've become, the things that you've accomplished. That's not to say we can't work towards things or have goals, but it really is truly just being here, living in the present moment, which I think for a lot of people growing up in high control religions, cults, fundamentalism, there's always about this next thing that you can do or be, or this place that you get to. And so to be able to be present and to celebrate and to say, like, no, part of this healing process really is the living piece of it, feels really
Yeah.
exciting, really different, and that's where I'm excited to be really intentional about it and to say, yeah, let's actually think about this. Let's observe the ways that we can celebrate how far we've come and just be in this moment and present and celebrating that.
Yes. And something else just popped up in my brain. That's not to say
Yeah.
we're just gonna sit and be grateful, because we're not trying to, like,
Yeah.
toxic
Yeah.
positivity anything. Like, yes,
Yes.
great being
Yeah.
grateful is awesome, and I'm here for it,
Mhm.
but that's not the focus. The focus is to
Yeah.
just look at yourself and to do an internal inventory and be like, "I'm awesome, and this is why." So I just had to point
Yeah.
that out because sometimes the whole
Yes.
gratitude thing can get annoying.
Yeah. Yes. Snaps
So
for that.
yes. So you guys have this link. I'll also leave it in the description once this is over, but you
Mm.
can go through. This website is really thorough. Trova Trip is awesome. We've partnered with
Yeah.
them to basically create this entire itinerary. Everything that is on here is something that has been tried and tested with multiple other people. So we're not the first one
Mhm.
doing this exact itinerary. It took us a while to find the one that we wanted specifically from their catalog of itineraries based on what you guys wanted, the time of year, and everything. So, all of this is very well laid out and figured out. And we're just really excited to go on this trip with you guys. So, it's going to launch again on Tuesday at I think 5:40. We're probably going to go live at 5:30 next Tuesday, and then we'll hit time to launch, and then you guys will be free to sign up until your heart is content. And I think that's it for the trip. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I wish Jonathan was here
Mm.
to let me know if I forgot something. Um, I think that's it. Do you have anything else that you want to add, Laura, about the trip specifically?
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. I think that, when I do like a question and answers and stuff on social media, one of the things that I get asked all the time is like, I miss my community. How do I make friends and whatnot? I think this is
Hmm.
such a wonderful way to lean into that because when we're coming out of these high control groups, we're oftentimes losing everything. Every part of our life is impacted, and not least of which is our relationships and the people that we can spend time with. So to be around people that can understand your experience and then just say like, yeah, this is something that connects us, but most of all, we want to go have fun and like adventure the world and maybe do things that we've never gotten to do before. I think this trip can really provide that. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's gonna be awesome.
Mhm.
And it's even gonna be an exercise for me because people may be surprised that I'm actually an introvert. Very
Oh,
much
me
like,
too. Yes.
I don't know,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yes. Very
So
much
this
so.
is
Yeah.
yeah, so this is going to be one where I really have to get out of my
Mm,
comfort zone and be comfortable being in group settings because I'm very good with people
mhm.
one on one. That's my jam. Obviously, it's what I do on the channel. But
Yeah.
when I get in big groups, I'm just more like, I'd rather hang back and let them just do their thing. So it's going to be interesting for me to kind of go out there and be brave and just explore with these people who
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm excited to get to
Yeah.
know all of you. It's not to say that I
Yes.
don't want to. I'm very excited. It's
Mhm.
just going to be something new for me.
Yeah. I love it. Me too.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. So,
Yeah.
actually, that
Mm,
reminds me, and I'm glad that I thought of this, is once the trip is confirmed and all of the
mm.
spots are filled up, we are gonna be doing
Oh,
some
yeah.
Zooms before the trip. So,
Yes.
we aren't going in totally blind. I wanna kind of get
Yeah.
to know the people who are signing up so that we can even maybe
Mm,
tailor the workshops a little bit more
yeah.
to what the group needs. And we're
Mhm.
flexible and we want to make
Yeah.
this optimal for everybody. So we're going to be doing at least 2 Zooms with everybody to kind of get to know you.
Mhm.
And I think that's it. So, guys, if you're interested, let me drop the link one more time in the chat. You can add your email. If you haven't filled out the survey, you can add your email so that you're notified immediately when it's available. The first 8 people to
Mm.
sign up will get an early bird discount of $200 off. So just keep that in mind. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Laura, for coming on and
Yeah. Thanks
also
for
being
having me.
willing to yeah, going to Costa Rica with us and being our in-house therapist.
Mhm.
This is so fun. I know it's the start of something really great.
Mhm. Yes, I think it's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again. And until next time, follow your highest excitement, be conscious and be well.